what's up? Welcome back to the CEO Post Podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We are sitting down another Mindset Monday episode with my co-host. How's that? Justin Thorstad.
The crowd goes wild. Well, I really appreciate that you do a different sound effect every time.
Yeah.
It makes me feel important.
Well, I mean, I put a lot of effort and thinking and creativity into all that stuff.
Do you? That makes you feel
I mean,
important.
it takes me about maybe 2.5 hours solid to put it together the night before.
Yeah.
Practice the vocals and yeah, I mean, it's a whole process. But
You're getting better too.
Yeah.
Just a little feedback for you.
Yeah, it's
I'm
the whole creative process. You wouldn't understand. So, fam, now we want to talk about something that's very important, right? And this is something that we challenge. I mean, we've had a challenge with in the past. I'll speak for myself on this, but I know Justin's on the same token. I know a lot of agents in real estate, when they join a brokerage and they start talking price points and offers and values, they come across the same issue, right? So what are you worth in dollars, not esoterically?
Yeah. Not
right?
Like actual tangible dollars.
Yeah.
What's your worth?
What's your worth? What are you bringing to the table in terms of value? And more importantly, how do you feel good with that? How do you become okay with, okay, cool. I mean, charging your worth, your value, right? If you've spent, for example, at this point, I've been an entrepreneur since 2007, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of years in there in terms of growth, in terms of experience, in terms of going to seminars and trainings and hundreds of thousands of dollars in education. So like that's got to amount to something. When you're an agent, for example, we see this like in brokerages, right? Not that I want to get just into real estate specific, but we'll use that as an example. You see agents that go to marketing seminars, sales seminars, and all kinds of designations and whatnot. They're investing money in themselves, right, to increase their value. Yet when it comes to upholding their own value, a lot of times there's a pullback. There's a lot of friction, and the insecurity creeps in, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
well, and I think yes, you used realtors as kind of the content for the context we're talking about here, but you and I both know, because we have several businesses, not just real estate. Like, I've found, just speaking from my own experience of myself, every time I've launched a business, and whether that was being a realtor or starting a brokerage or my personal one-on-one coaching, my seminars, my coaching masterminds, every time I start a new business and I got to say, okay, so what is this worth? What am I worth, really, is what I'm communicating. Like, there's always that uneasy of like, well, here's what's comfortable and here's what's too much.
Right.
Right. And then there's that honest conversation of feeling into, no, wait a minute, let me resource myself here. I've gone through hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally, in just education,
right,
let alone the time that it's taken me to implement that stuff and gain experience with it, to really know what the hell I'm talking about, and to be able to speak to what I'm talking about and the evidence called my results in life, right? And like, there's fucking worth in that. There's value in that. Yeah. And like, it's not replaceable. Like, you have to actually sit in the fire and go through these things. And so, I just love it brings in the law of compensation, right? You earn compensation. And I didn't even say money, compensation, in direct ratio to the value you provide humanity. Yeah. And that's broken down into three things: the demand there is for what you do, your ability to actually do that thing, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. Yeah. So like, if you really sit with all of that and quantify that out, what's it worth? Like, I remember when I first started doing personal coaching one-on-ones, I knew I wanted to charge $1,000, but the number just didn't quite fit. But I looked at my hourly rate and all my experience, my results in coaching people that I wasn't actually charging, and the results they produce. It's like, there's worth there. There's a tremendous amount of value based on my results. And so I remember the very first phone call I got from someone that wanted to hire me. I didn't even put it out there yet. I wasn't marketing myself or anything. This person just called me up and said, "Hey, do you do one-on-one coaching?" And I was like, "Actually, I do." I didn't tell her, "Hey, you're going to be my first client." And so we had a whole conversation. And it's funny, I was just talking about this a couple of nights ago. And she goes, "Okay, so that all sounds good. So what's your fee?" And I knew in my head I wanted to say $1,000, right? But like, I got choked up. It was like $750.
The number always gets stuck in the solar plex.
Yes.
So you're somewhere in there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And it just won't get passed out, fall out the mouth. And but you know what? This was a number of years ago. But in that moment, that experience taught me something. I will never downplay myself again, ever. But, we bring up this conversation because, it is key for entrepreneurs. Like, are you willing to write down what you're worth with whatever service or product that you're giving and stick to it and declare it? And what I found for me through experience of all these businesses and setting what my fees are going to look like and so forth, like it takes a while. I'll say this, if you say your number and you set it quick with confidence and you're good with it, it's too small.
Yeah.
It is. You gotta increase that. And then it's going to take a little time to get the
used
self-image
to
to fit that. Be like, yep, that's my number. And I would never accept anything less.
You know one thing, I mean, because we're talking, I mean, say that you list $1 million property, right? It's a big number. And if you're not used to that kind of, commissions or spreads or, whatever that is, when you're disclosing the fee, it's going to feel like a huge number, right? It's going to feel like, to get comfortable with that kind of stuff, I role played. Like I literally stood in front of the mirror and I was like, yeah, the fee for this is gonna be blank. And then it's funny, but even to myself, bro, just looking at myself in the mirror, it was a challenge to put that number out there.
You're like, I'm full of
in
shit.
my head, I believed it, right? Like absolutely, like this is the service that I'm gonna provide. And for example, take that to the coaching side of things. Take that to anything that we do as entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a commission, but it's a number. It's a tangible number, right? I think it really comes down to breaking that financial thermostat and that paradigm that we have in just fixed in our mindset, right? Because if it feels weird, if you feel stupid saying a number, yet you believe it inside, like that should be the number. There's a duality, right? There's got to be congruence between the two.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about you role played it, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's one thing for people like watching this episode or any other education that you go to. It's one thing to understand the philosophy and to memorize that. It's a whole nother thing to get into action with it and initiate it and move that information down to your heart, to your core, where you know that's your truth.
Yeah.
Like to travel that distance is the longest distance you'll ever experience. Yeah. And so I love what you said about role playing it and even saying it in the mirror, something of that nature, because the more you say it, the more you have to step into being it, right? And so you're mentally, emotionally rehearsing that future success as if it's happening now. Yeah. So whether it's role play and or sitting down and visualizing it, meditating on it, seeing yourself with that client, saying those numbers and speaking to it like with confidence, a state of being that's like, that's the number. Of course, it's 6% commission.
Yeah.
And saying it with the utmost confidence and not breaking eye contact and not having a crackle in your voice and not, the tonality slumping down because so is your state of being. Really just coming out with it and standing behind that as your truth. Like that takes some repetition. And so do you want to practice right there in front of the client or do you want to practice before you get to the table?
Yeah. I mean, make your runs, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
If I'm gonna fuck it up, I want to do it in the mirror when it's by myself.
Totally.
But I mean, stepping back and then really looking at the bigger picture, right? It's really about embracing our value, like monetary value in dollars, not just the spiritual value, which I mean we've talked about that before, and who we are as individuals, right? That's one thing. Your own self-worth is one thing. What we're talking about is, okay, what kind of worth are you driving in from the world outside of you? Okay, what does that look like? Is that matching the value that you're putting out, or are you selling yourself short?
And I'd fair to say 90% of people are selling themselves short.
Yeah.
Take realtors as an
Dude,
example.
I love it when people just, this is it. And then they have this stupid high number. It's like, man, that's some confidence right there. I don't know if they're knuckleheads, but like that just intrigues me. Right.
Yeah.
I know I had a battle with it. I mean, there was a high degree of just one, I think it was fear of loss because, potential business may go away. But then when you start defining what your client is going to look like, what your value is going to add to any given person, you start to figure out exactly who you're going after, right? Yeah. For example, now I understand that my demographic, the value that I can best give fits a certain group of people, right? And if that group of people, or if somebody has a pushback in that number, they're just not my they're not my client. Somebody else can give them more value than I can because they're at just a different stage, right? So
I had a mentor many years ago when I was into real estate. And he said, and it always stuck with me, absent of value, people seek price. And I thought, how can I incorporate that into my business, right? Like if you think about it, if you're going to go search, you want to buy a new big screen TV, right? And if you're comparing this Sony to that Sony in the same size, it's the same product. So you're going to look for the cheapest one, right?
Yeah.
So there's no value in the two because they're identical. You know, one's not more valuable than the other. So why would you pay more money for the same exact thing? Yeah. But when you're talking about your intrinsic value, and then you're able to quantify that with a dollar and cents and say, this is what it is, you got to be able to stand behind that. And so this is a big problem with realtors, you know, I mean, because that's the majority amount of people that I deal with as far as entrepreneurs, although there's many different industries and fields. And I'm just surrounded by more realtors more often. And it's funny to me because the vast majority of realtors do not charge 6% commission. They all charge less. Yeah. And whether it's 5% and they take 2.5% and they offer 2.5%, whatever the split, you know, how it comes down. But it's like, and I remember when I dealt with that problem many years ago, and what drove that inability to really say 6% and say it with confidence was what you touched on earlier. I thought that if I didn't lower it, they'd go with somebody else that was cheaper or whatever, and I would lose out on the opportunity to earn that income. Yeah. So if you take a look at that, honestly, where that exists is a sense of scarcity. You know what I mean? And so what really served me well was to reframe my relationship to that energy called money and say, no. There's an abundance of business out there. If I lose this one and I close that door because they're not willing to pay me what I'm worth, other doors will open. Now that took a tremendous amount of like intentional willpower and attention to be fixated on that as a truth and practice that and step into that. And I'll tell you, ever since I did that, I was never willing to accept less than that.
One thing, and that resonates. One thing that got me too was, and this is outside of commissions, right? But for example, on the services side of things, when you drop the number out there and then people say, "Oh, I thought it'd be more." It's like shit, and then you start thinking, right? Like, well, I mean, am I leaving stuff on the table? Am I, just undermining the value that I can offer somebody else? So, like, the question really is what value are you putting out, into the world, right? And ask yourself the question. Okay, it's got to be a win-win. There has to be. It's always a two-way street, right? There has to be, some give so you can take. There has to be that degree of just play between the two, and I think it's easy to forget that part, right? The give. At this point, I understand that the more we give, the more we get. But I also have a strong hold on the value that I'm putting out there. When I try to get, when somebody tries to strong arm me or drive me in for, I don't know. I mean, you name it, right? We'll, even if it's discounts or stuff like that. I mean, I used to just give in real quick, and it's not a matter of it's not even a matter of the money. It's not about the the 500s you're gonna knock off or the whatever the amount is, right? It's not about that. It's about me understanding that every time I do that, I'm devaluing everything that I've done in the past.
Yes. Well, and not only that, but when you do give that discount, don't you take a little bit of that scarcity energy into the very next appointment? Yeah. Of like, oh God, I hope they're willing to pay me what I'm asking for. Yeah. Like, and the thing about it was what I noticed, just paying attention to myself through that process is when I was scared about them asking what's my fee, and I would cower down and give that discount, like I found it harder to get new business. Yet when I made that switch, when I transcended that and said, no, there's plenty of business out there. There's more than enough. I'm going to ask for what I want, and I'm going to get it. And I went in there semi-confident and said it, and I got it. And I started like leaning into that sense of abundance. Business just came to me.
It becomes a new norm, right?
It does.
And again, we're using, real estate fees and whatnot, but I mean, take that into the space of investments. Take that, and I don't know, if you have an AC company, look at the same thing. Totally. How many times do people want to drive down their services? And I get it, right? Sometimes we give incentives and things here and there. If there's merit to it, I have no problem doing it. But if you're giving in because of a sensation of fear, that's a problem, right?
Totally.
A sensation of fear, or even worse, a sensation that well, maybe that's all I'm worth.
Yeah, well,
that.
and that's just it. It's like if you think that's all I'm worth, and if I don't give them a discount, they're going to say no, then I won't get the business. It really is. You're
validating that low number.
You are. You're validating it, and therefore you're giving it your attention and you're feeding it energy, and it's going to grow, right? So like at some point you just got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired of taking discounts and not earning enough money and not getting enough business coming to you where you're always out there having to hunt it. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there's another way. With an abundance mentality, it comes to you. And it's funny because I remember the very first appointment I went on after I made that transition. And they said, so what's your fee? And I just looked them dead in the eye and said 6%.
Yeah.
And inside I was freaking out. Freaking out. It's like, oh God, I hope he just takes it. And then you know what the guy said? Will you take less?
Yeah.
And at first I wanted to say, yeah. But then I was like, no, but I can appreciate you asking me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, just fucking freaking out. And you know what? He goes, okay, good. No, I can respect that. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, it worked.
Yeah.
Like some people are going to ask for a discount just because they feel compelled that they have to at least ask.
Yeah.
And just because you say no doesn't mean they're going to say no to the deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, try it out. Give it a shot. Just one time. Like, you might shock yourself. Because, when you give it a shot and you actually get what you want and they're willing to pay your fee, the end result of that experience is a new elevated emotion.
Yeah.
And that new elevated emotion you get to anchor inside and utilize as your new truth. And then start operating from that space. But it's never going to turn around until you open your ask hole for what you want. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a very eloquent way to put it.
You like that?
Yeah.
Ask hole.
Yeah, ask hole.
Yeah. Well, my stepdad, when I was super, super young, I watched him. He was an entrepreneur. Not a hugely successful one, but nonetheless, he always worked for himself. Yeah. And he said, you know what? You don't deserve anything you don't ask for.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, no, and I get that, right? I mean, again, if there's merit behind, I'm not opposed to helping people out, or I don't know, if you have a product, somebody wants to come in and take it, and they're struggling. I mean, it's okay to do stuff like that, but I think it's gotta come from the right space.
Yeah, those are the exception basis, right?
Yeah, the question is, or the thing is, devaluating yourself, right? I mean, dude, it's so common. To have that question of again, whether or not your services are worth it, and what do you do? Just giving in for the sake of giving in. People don't even push, and you're already giving in. So again, just one point that I want to highlight here is that when you do that kind of stuff, it validates the fact that you're less than worth it. You're worth less to the world than you think you are. Yeah. I mean, and that hurts. If I see it, if I think about it that way, I was like, ugh. Yeah. I'm like,
so, it was funny. This is a great topic. It's very timely. So last Tuesday, I had a mastermind with the top earners in my brokerage. And the vast majority of them are team leaders. And so we were talking about, what is your worth and articulating that. So it's funny you bring up this topic today. But we were going through the room and some of the people that are new at starting a team were like, well, I don't really know what my value proposition is. So, okay, great. So why don't you tell me, so this is an exercise for you people to do at home, just write down, what is it you're really good at? And so she started naming things off. Well, I'm a really good coach in the fact that I'm honest and I'm direct with feedback. And that's a great fucking skill, man.
Yeah.
Most people have not mastered the art of feedback because they're still concerned with how what they have to say is going to land. And what if I hurt their feelings and they get pissed off?
I got to be likable.
I need to be liked instead of respected and all that other kind of bullshit. And so, we just started listing these things off and I circled the top 3 and I'm like, do you have any idea the amount of value you bring to the table just with those 3, let alone these other 6 things that you just stated? And what is that worth? And I said, actually, do I possess those? She's like, well, of course you do. I said, that's why you came to work with me, because I have those. And what was that worth to you? So if you possess those too, what are you worth? You know what I mean? So the activity at home is take some time and even mind map it out. My worth, my value, and what are some of the skill sets that you have and things that you've been working to develop.
Get pragmatic with it. Get pragmatic
break
with
it
it.
down.
Break it down. Get pragmatic. And what I mean by that is just actually have a checklist of the stuff that you're giving out to the world or you're providing the world with. Because again, this is not coming from this conversation. I mean, maybe just kind of like borderline mindset. but I think it plays well into it. But it's about, again, understanding, right? With with nuts and bolts, what you're bringing out and what you should be bringing in, and being okay with it from that standpoint.
Well, it is mindset because you know wealth is a mindset. You build wealth through that way of thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you don't know your worth and therefore you're not charging that, like how are you ever going to build wealth? How are you ever going to attract enough business? Or are you always going to have to be out there hunting? You know, like I love your saying, man, hustle's a season, not a business strategy. Yeah. And a lot of entrepreneurs, unfortunately, hustle is a business strategy. Yeah. They got to be on it 365 days a year.
The long-term business strategy.
Yeah, and it's so ineffective. Yeah. Ineffective, right?
Yeah, it's a tool, right? I mean, hustle is a tool. I mean, that's really what it is. We need it to get going, to get through the tough times. I mean, the hustle, the tenacity has to be in there.
Of course.
But, I mean, you got to have other ways of coming about things. One of them is giving yourself your own worth.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you watching, like, write out those skills and qualities you possess, that experience that you have, what sets you apart from your competition. There's things there. You may not be willing to look at it, and maybe you get with somebody that knows you really well and ask them for their opinion and feedback, or somebody else in the same industry and brainstorm these things. And then take a look at your competition and what they're charging, and look at some of the top earners, maybe the people that you respect or want to emanate, or so on and so forth, and charge what they're charging. It won't fit at first, and that's the whole damn point. You got to step into that elevated state. You know what I mean?
If you have to grow into it, you'll grow into it.
Totally.
One thing that I do now, man, and again, this is to kind of battle the. I really had a dilemma, right? I mean, should I, for example, if I'm putting together a training, and the the dilemma of discounted rates and all that stuff. I mean, honestly, I think it's worth the time and money and I mean times 10, 20, 30, like the stuff that we're going to be going over. Anyways, that's how much I believe in the content of it, right? Yet I still find myself wanting to just kind of give in to that discounted thing. Like it's a total duality. It's not. It's going in the exact opposite direction of where I want to go, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a normal tendency.
It's that default. Yeah, it's that default thing. So what I started doing, I mean, I just asked myself, okay, cool. If I feel split because I want to help somebody, and then the price thing is really an issue. Okay, let's find a way to create a win-win out of it. I will not do just a discount for the sake of doing a discount.
Sure.
Because that's taking, I mean, think about it, right? And if I'm spending time with somebody on something and I'm helping them out, I'm taking away time from my friendships, my family, my kids, you name it. Myself.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm putting it there, but they're not valuing the value that I have as a professional, right? That's really what it comes down to. It may be this is unpopular topic or opinion, but
this is really important too.
I do believe that.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I don't mean to derail you, but this is really important that I found is that, so let's say you're one-on-one type coaching, right? If you were to discount that because they couldn't afford it or something of that nature, you're also communicating to them that, hey, you're not capable to come up with solutions and be resourceful to pay me my fee.
No.
Like you're incapable. And it's not true, because if they do see value in it, they'll borrow a family member's credit card or whatever it takes to get them what they want. And there's a lot of value for them to go through that struggle in order to get what they want. Yeah. And so if you take that struggle away from them, you're actually like clipping their wings, man.
Yeah, I agree, because it's not... well, for example, this is what I do to cope with that, right? With in my head, I don't feel like shit because I'm not doing a discount and I'm not devaluing myself. Like, how do I create a win-win? All right, and it's basic negotiation 101, but it's if you're gonna give something, what are you gonna get in return? All right, and I really see it that way. It doesn't have to be money, right? You said it, compensation. It has to be compensation in some way or somehow. So I'll throw in, for example, that something that calls for merit, and then that will justify to help them out with the price drop or do whatever, right?
So you're talking like a barter type system.
It's not.
Right?
I'm not discounting. I am not. I'm doing an exchange, right? I'm trading cash for something else, but the value is still there. It's not a discount because I'm not just giving into it.
Equal exchange of value.
Exactly. So it's still an equal exchange of value, and I'm upholding my worth, right? And I'm helping out where if as far as I think I can, without debilitating their ability, and it's creating a win-win, right? For example, call it I don't call it referrals, call it something else. Okay, if you want to sign up for this and you don't have the ability to do it, okay, cool. Let's work with 3 people, send me 3 leads, figure out help me promote this thing or whatnot, and then we'll pick it up from there.
There you go.
But it's a good conversation to have, right? To me, it's I have to find ways if I'm going to do anything like that to keep the value at high, okay? And again, not devaluing what I'm putting out. It's got to be a win-win. And if I do something in terms of adjusting the monetary exchange, it's got to be compensation. The compensation has to be equal, right? So, anyways, there's ways of getting creative and upholding your value.
There's an agent I have, and I figured all the details, and not to bore anybody with a long ass story, but basically the gist of it was the realtor ended up having to pay for a dumpster to be dropped off to do a kind of a trash out, and the owner didn't have the money. And the guy's like, well, we got to figure something out here. And the guy's like, well, I got this handgun, and it was a really nice, expensive handgun. He's like, I'll give you this instead of cash. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm not saying deal with firearms and whatever, but the point of exchange of value, like he loves firearms, this agent, right? And the guy didn't have the cash and was willing to let go of this and offered it up. So
the value is being, it's being upheld.
Exactly. Because again, anytime that you take less than what your value is, you start dishonoring yourself. And pay attention and notice when you give that discount unwillingly, not an exception type basis. Where do you feel it in your body?
Exactly.
Like your energy goes down. You even cower down a little bit. Your shoulders come forward.
If you're not feeling good about doing that, stop doing it.
Yeah. Now, again, there's a time and place though to do these types of things, right? Like I knew this guy for like 12 years. I never supported him in a real estate transaction, but he sent me deals over the years. He calls me up one day out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, Justin, I got this rental property. Tenants moving out. For what I owe is what it's worth, and so I'm going to have to pay to sell my house." He's like, "Can you help me out?" So I took a look at it, and it's like I could fit in about 1.5%.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's half of my fee. But I love this dude tremendously. He's a solid man. Like we mastermind sometimes. He sent me business. It's like I'm going to do him a solid because I love him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. And that's completely different, right?
Completely
You're coming
different.
from a space of actually reciprocity right there because he's helped you out through the years.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, right? If it doesn't feel right to be selling yourself short, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're discounting, if you're not, charging your worth, and it just doesn't feel right, you feel like it should be higher. Cut that shit out.
Yeah. So what we're specifically talking about is when somebody asks you, what's your fee, what's your cost, whatever, and you've got that hesitation because you want to ask for this, but you think you can only get that, and you don't want them to say no and take their business away. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And every single entrepreneur goes through it.
Yeah.
And
how'd you deal with that?
It's actually come up every time I start a new business and I go to set new fees and so forth. Again, when I was an agent, charging 6%. When I started a brokerage, setting the economic models, the split plans, and all of that for agents. And I ended up elevating all of those too, realizing the cost of doing business and all of that. With my personal coaching, with my seminars, I just upped the tickets again. It's like I deal with it every time I launch a new business. Yeah. So I don't think it ever fully goes away. And I know my damn worth, right? Yeah. But it still comes up. And so I think it's just an ongoing thing. It's just a practice. But it is also an awareness of, no, wait a minute. I'm doing this thing because what I have is of value to people. And then the law of compensation exists. And I'll be damned if I'm going to live in scarcity mode. Like, I'm an abundant motherfucker, right? So, like, I always deal with it in launching new businesses, and I'm launching lots of them. And so now I look at it as just an opportunity to remind every time it comes up, it's just another opportunity to remind myself that I am of value and I am abundant. So here we go. Yeah. And so it gets easier and easier as you practice it. That doesn't mean it ever fully goes away.
Yeah, and I think it's almost an adopted expectation, right? At some point, the uncertainty is going to be there, but you know how to react to it. Now you have this space of awareness. Okay, cool. This is what I'm worth. I'm not gonna backpedal on stuff. And I mean, you have to. How does the saying go? If you ask the universe for a penny, or that's all it's gonna deliver.
Oh, yeah. I forget, but I know what you're talking about.
You bargain with life for a penny, and a penny's all you got, and you could have gotten.
You could have gotten more.
Yeah,
you totally botched the shit out of that, and I didn't
dude,
support you.
That's kind of my thing. I just
especially today, huh?
fuck up the shit out of like sayings.
Yeah. So, there's something else I was going to say, but it escaped me now with your comedy.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's very true, right? Look at brands. Shit, look at brands. You have the exact same, materials in a purse, just because it's got a different logo in it, and then it's worth, I don't know, $3,000 more.
Yeah.
Or shoes or whatever. It's branding plays into it, but I like, what's the mindset behind that one person that came up with that, right? So, I mean,
absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about. So figure out, ask yourself, go through that little session and ask yourself what kind of value you're bringing to the world. Do a checklist. You're gonna find out there's 7 to 10 things in there that are really, really cool, and people will pay money for it. Start charging what you're supposed to be charging for that kind of stuff, because money is it's a magnification of who we are. All right. 100%. We can't be entrepreneurs. We can't inspire. We can't lead. We can't empower. We can't do any of that stuff if we're not sitting on a solid basis. And that solid basis is success. It's wealth. So, I mean, it's just feed that, and it's going to feed the rest.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Self-worth, and that's, that's what I mean by that, right?
And so sitting down and take a look at what is your experience, your knowledge, your expertise. Yeah. How do you serve? Are you an abundant mindset, or are you in scarcity mindset? And start just penciling these things out. Set aside some time to sit and have these sessions night after night after night, and sit with it. And sit down and, I'm a huge meditator every single day, and visualize you saying these things to a client or prospective customer. And you've got to mentally, emotionally rehearse that future success, and so that it will be. Otherwise, you can practice on people when you get to the table, but your chances of success are going to go up exponentially. Yeah. The more you sit and role play with yourself, the more that you step into that before you even get to the table. Yeah. That preparation is worth everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. So there you guys have it. Justin, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, where's the best place to find you?
Best place, justinthorstad.com, or my cell phone number, 602-348-8534.
I'm telling you, we're going to be famous one day, and you're going to be regretting that number.
Yeah, it'll be out there all over YouTube and shit. And hey, no, I love it. I love supporting entrepreneurs and closing that gap from where they are to where they want to be. That's what gets me out of bed every single morning. It fulfills me. So don't throw me with a phone call. It's a good time.
Yeah, definitely. And do us a favor. If you're liking the content that we're putting out there for you guys on a regular basis, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Spread the word. Push the channel to somebody else who you might think can benefit from the conversations that we're having. You can find me at Rafael Cortez, CEO, on all social media and YouTube.
Did you have to say that with an accent?
Rafael, I got to roll my R's, bro.
I'm just jelly.
It's a, yeah. So, Rafael Cortez. Rafael Cortez, CEO, on IG and YouTube and MySpace and all those. Yeah. All right, guys. So, awesome. Until the next one, stay focused. You got this.